So I'm going to hit the record button, and I'm a belt and suspenders kind of person, so I also have a digital recorder just in case. When we do things long distance, things can sometimes get away from us. We are talking to everybody today. This is a special, what we call a BOSS talk, which stands for Business Ownership Success System. I asked Will Newton, who's a colleague and a longtime friend of mine, to talk about external governance, not only in terms of the National Federation of Independent Business, he is the Texas director, but really looking at the total topic as it would relate to you all starting or growing the businesses that you have. And then we have some other attendees who are joining us from Austin. So I'm going to make sure that everybody saw the chat window below, and that's where you can type a message or a question or whatever, and I will be looking at that and feeding that to Will. So feel free to comment or whatever. We're going to be closing right at noon our time, or 1 o'clock your time. If you all need to step out and get a drink of water or munch on your lunch. I tried to do it over the lunch hour for you guys in Virginia so that it would work better for you. Feel free. So these programs are part of the Business Success Center, and this is what we do: is we grow businesses by making sure that they are grown from a structured position. And when we talk about growth, obviously in the class we're talking about how do you deal with the compliance issues that we're all required to do. And Will and I were just talking about the fact that over the last 2 or 3 days, there have been 3 or 4 new ordinances or rules or perspectives from the Supreme Court that have thrown kind of a monkey wrench in things. So it really is important to look at external governance and these small business issues all the time. And those will have an impact on the customer that you choose, because some things are only for certain kinds of customers and not for others. Some are related to nonprofit, et cetera. Some are only related to for-profit. The model you choose will affect how you look at the issues related to statutes and ordinances and rules and regulations. And for some of you are in highly regulated areas like health or hospitality, restaurants, et cetera, is that there are a lot of rules that are specific to your specific industry, which may impact how you are able to balance life and work. And it's important, as you're building a business, that you have something that allows your goals to match what you're doing. And if it doesn't, then maybe the ordinances and the other external governance things that you're running into might help you decide to go kind of a different way. Competition is certainly part of external governance, because do you comment or turn in somebody who's competing against you when you see that they are not being compliant? So these issues, positioning, pricing, there are lots of issues when we talk about these rules and regulations. Sometimes people think that you cannot have a price that is different from one person to another or one company to another. And when you look at the ways in which you can price, then you also have to go back to looking at what are the laws that govern that, because they always change also. And then obviously for all of us who are in business, what we want to do is think of this business as an investment. Even if it's a nonprofit, it's an investment for the community, and we want it to continue. And those laws that govern that help us lead to successful exit. And that means getting your money back out or successfully transferring the assets of your nonprofit. And so all of those pieces are going to go into what you're doing for me if you are one of my students in the external governance class. But it certainly is appropriate for all of us who are here who are actually business owners. So we're going to share ideas. We're going to give you ideas. If you have some things, some of you are already in business and you want to share what you do in terms of managing your external governance and keeping up with the laws, please do. This is our agenda. We're going to do introductions right now. So Hope, let's start with you, if you
Well, I am Hope Scott. I currently teach business, CTE, career and technical education classes in a high school locally. I will probably stay in the school system until my youngest graduates. It's there's a lot of drama, not necessarily in the high school, but in our whole school system. So I just want to be in it until she's done. After that, I am hoping to maybe start a business that maybe while I'm still in it, but my mom and I actually talked about this years ago when we were dealing with my aging grandparents, her parents, and the fact that so many times she or I had to take off work to take them back and forth to the doctor. We had to use a lot of time that we would be, I guess, working or spending valuable just interaction time with them. We were bouncing checkbooks or doing things for them. And I feel like there's a need for that, just non-medical assistance to aging folks who are capable and okay with staying at home alone. But as my other grandmother started getting older and she didn't want to drink because then she'd have to get up and go to the bathroom. She'd forget to take her medicine. So just someone that goes into the home, spends an hour or so with the individual to give the family some peace of mind that they're okay while they're at work, and to maybe pick up some groceries, do some light cleaning, just to give them some company, that sort of thing.
That's great, Hope. And you did a wonderful job helping Will understand kind of where you're coming from. So Yasmin, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yasmin Abusala. I live in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I've been working in healthcare for about the last 15 years, and I recently started working in Spotsylvania County Public Schools. I do have a passion for healthcare, and that's kind of where I'm gearing and hoping to, go back and work in it. It was just a lot of self-reflecting and trying to find where exactly I belong in the administration part of healthcare and what it is that I really want to do. And so, yeah, I mean, I have 2 kids, and that's it, pretty simple, and yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I enrolled in the MBA program to further, grow both in my education and in my career. And I think I'm hoping to actually take away from this class, and by the end of the curriculum, the possibility and the opportunity to pursue something independently in healthcare.
And that's wonderful. Yasmin, you and I have talked about either you working as a manager for one of your coworkers who's going to start a business, or maybe helping him and helping other companies. So I think that's really exciting. Jennifer, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, guys. This is Jennifer Jones. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I've been working in healthcare for over 25, probably close to 30 years. I had a short stint in banking, but I returned back to healthcare because I like helping people. I just couldn't find the adequate way to help people with the banking in the area that I had my expertise in. But what I'm interested in doing once I get to an age where I'm ready to no longer do healthcare anymore is to help women. As a young mother, there were a lot of resources that was there to assist me, and I want to give back to the community by having resources available to women who lack the adequate resources to get the help they need to be self-sufficient, whether they're coming from an abuse situation or have aged out of foster care, anything that I can do to help women to become, like I said, self-sufficient. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing as I go through my golden years, and just feel like I'm giving back to the community, whether I teach them about how to be self-sufficient financially, healthcare, because that's my background, but anything that I can help them to just become better citizens.
And Jennifer, are you thinking of this as being a for-profit business or a nonprofit or a for-profit with a nonprofit or a nonprofit with a for-profit?
I'm kind of thinking eventually for both nonprofit and for profit, because I'd like to take in possibly flipping houses or something like that and have some of the women in those properties as I buy and recycle or whatever.
Okay.
Well, that's some thoughts I'm tossing around in my head right now.
And that's great. One of the nonprofits in our area is called Framework CDC, and they do a lot of what you're talking about, focusing on creating new homeowners. So I think that you all have really interesting ideas. So now it's time for us to meet our special guest. Let me go back a minute. If you do have a cell phone, oh, is there somebody I missed?
Yes, I did the phone call because I can't get in on my computer.
Oh, good. So say who you are.
Hi, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Williams. I'm currently just enrolled in school. I actually have a job interview with Enterprise Rent-A-Car for manager in training, actually at 2. So I am trying to get back into the workforce. I've been out for a while just simply because I have 2 twin boys and they were sick when they were born. So it was a long year for their development. So hope they're doing well now. So I'm very grateful for that. I hope to, in the future, start a business as a freight broker. My fiance is a truck driver and we want to start our own trucking business.
Great.
So there's always a need for drivers, and of course there's always be a need for freight brokers because he's an owner operator, so he wants to go as far as he can with that. So I enjoyed working with him. I've been on the road with him maybe for a day or 2. It's very rewarding. He loves it, and I think that it'll be great for us to work together on that. So that is what I am working towards.
Great, Brian, because that is highly regulated. All of you all really are looking at things that are heavily regulated. So a lot of what you're going to be doing in terms of starting the business and growing the business has to do with the things that Will is about to talk about. And so, Brian, one of my clients is a truck permitting company. So I want to make sure that I connect you to her. She does it all over the country. So glad to see you and have everybody. Is there anybody else out there who called in?
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Jennifer Hampton.
Hi, Jennifer.
And I live right outside of Richmond, Virginia. And I feel like I have something in common with everyone. I'm a mother of twins, and they were preemies. They're 5 now. So.
Oh, wow.
I went to law school, and most of my work that I've been doing is in as a contract attorney. I did teach for a little while. My passion is in alternative dispute resolution and helping women and children. And to that point, I want to develop a nonprofit for the state of Virginia, but starting in my local county, focused on not only alternative dispute resolution, but a restorative justice program modeled off of the youth court program. So it helps kids get a second chance, or on the back, back on the right track for minor offenses and things like that. And I'm in the development stages of the nonprofit, but I look forward to learning more so I can make sure that even though I've went to law school, you don't learn all the ins and outs of every area of law. So I want to make sure that I'm on my P's and Q's and I know what's going on as far as this nonprofit.
And that's great. And the dean knows about all of the plans that each one of you has expressed to me, and he's very excited to help you go forward as well. So thank you, Jennifer, for being with us as well. So we do be sure you use that chat box if you have a specific question that we don't get to. I also got Will's information and the director in Virginia, so you can reach out to her. But if there's something that you want an answer to right now, I'm going to be monitoring that. So we're going to go forward and talk to Will. But we're going to talk to Will after we make sure that everybody knows, and one of your assignments was to read about the National Federation of Independent Business. But I wanted to really make sure that you were clear that it is about advocacy, education, and assistance. And the point of the National Federation of Independent Business is to help all of us who have exactly the question that Jennifer had, which is, even lawyers don't have all the answers. So we have to have other resources. And that's part of the role of NFIB. And one of the things I pulled for everybody to be looking at or be thinking about, and I'm happy to send anybody the slides, and the audios will be up for my students, is this small business economic trends that was just put out in May. But I find it interesting, Will, that and I always listen to see if the radio station, KUT, our public radio station, picks up on the small business optimism rate. And I think in spite of everything, and we've got so much turmoil, is you'd think it might be down, but at least right now it's up. So we're looking forward to hearing you talk about it. And let's talk a little bit about what took you into this area of government relations and what some people call lobbying. So Will Newton, welcome.
Well, thank you, Jan. Appreciate it. And good morning or good afternoon to y'all in the East Coast. Yeah, I just got started. I began working at the Capitol here in Austin. I guess I was 19, worked as a house messenger, and just fell in love with the process. And went to work for state reps, state senators. Worked for the state comptroller at the time. She billed herself as one tough grandma, Carol Keaton Rylander, and just fell in love with the process. And my first lobby job was with the Texas Restaurant Association. Of course, I put on 30 pounds working for them, and was happy to find NFIB, which I think the philosophy of the organization is pretty much in line with everything I have always thought politically and the role of government in society, and particularly in business. So that's it. Been 34 years working around in Austin.
Oops, we got a little bit of a reverb. So we'll be watching for that problem. Will, if you've got your phone and your computer on, you might want to close one of those down. Mm-hmm. So, Will, you just got back from DC, and you met a couple of folks there, and what did you do? It's our annual fly-in, and it just so happens that this year it was our 75th anniversary of NFIB. So we threw a big gala and had great speakers. Our keynote speaker for the luncheon was President Trump, and this is last week. I don't know if you probably saw it on the news. He made quite a splash by talking about how much he closing his speech and saying how much he loves the flag and stands for the flag, and then he went over and hugged the flag. So you probably saw that on the news. But it was a great deal. We had our state senator, Ted Cruz, came by, and he did a podcast with our members. I think we had 46 NFIB Texas members there. We met with several of our congressmen. They came by. It was great. I think the folks that attend these things, any of these meetings, they start to understand the real meaning of being involved in politics, and that politicians really care. They want to hear what you have to say. They want to know how their actions are affecting you back home. And so it's really refreshing to see that in action. It was a lot of fun. So if you were going to give advice to all of us in terms of how to begin to think about all of these rules and regulations at all of these different levels, what have you seen that's worked well?
Well, one of my favorite quotes regarding being involved is Pericles in 460 BC said, "If you don't take an interest in politics, politics will take an interest in you." So, and it's been around forever, for a long, long time. It's important that you find groups that your trade association and NFIB that can help provide information to you, so you know what's going on. You don't have, if you're running a business, you don't have the time to watch what's going on in your state capital or in Washington, D.C. You can't keep up with it all. So that's why you hire groups like NFIB or chambers or whatever to help you make sense of it all. And that's what we try to do. And, you know, we advocate, of course, we have a unique system at NFIB, and that is we have a ballot system. I just don't go to the Capitol and lobby on willy-nilly on anything. I have to have asked my members how they want me to represent them on each and every particular issue. And then at the end of the session, or when the session ends, we do a voting record, and we show our members how their legislator voted on issues that concern them. So, and you know, we don't just make up the issues. We do a survey every year called our problems and priorities, and we list the top 75 issues affecting businesses. And just this last year, cost of health insurance has always been number one. It's huge, and I know a lot of y'all are in the healthcare field. But of the top five, 3 of them are about government and what government is doing to us or contemplating doing to us, including uncertainty over government actions, unreasonable government regulations, and tax and regulatory complexity. So it's a big problem, and you need someone there focused on providing information to these lawmakers, but also that's focused on providing you a quick and easy guide to what's happening and what the issues are, what has passed, what is now law, and how does it affect you and your bottom line.
Will, when you get involved with laws that have been passed, how does someone look at or work with the regulators to make sure that once they take the law, they turn it into something that actually can be done by a business, particularly by a small business? Do you play a role in that, or does NFIB play a role in that, or should we play a role as business?
Absolutely. I have a great example of one that happened recently. I serve on several little boards and commissions, one of them being the State Comptroller's Business Advisory Committee, and basically looking at tax policy. So what happens when a law passes? It's just, okay, now we have a law, everybody has to live under it. Well, it goes to an agency, whatever agency has authority over that law. And in that, then they have to promulgate rules. So these agencies are giving rulemaking authority in order to implement this new law. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I came across my computer information on a piece of legislation we helped one of our members in the Dallas area pass. And the comptroller's office was trying to promulgate rules that really didn't reflect the true legislative intent. And so I called the member that we did this for, and we set up a meeting with the top brass of the state comptroller's office, and we, in about a 2-hour meeting, hashed through it and got exactly what we wanted out of it. They just didn't understand the business model. It's a destination management company. They said, that if you want to, go to Dallas and have a big festival or have 2,000 to 4,000 people in a meeting, she arranges that, and she arranges all the transportation, the housing, the little site locations, the food, etc. And so it's really a unique business model that not many people had done, and there weren't many rules. So the comptroller's office, they tried to promulgate these rules that didn't really reflect the true intent. So we were able to step in and go meet with them and show them exactly what it was that the legislative intent was and the intent of the business owner and us.
And that's really important. And certainly for a small business owner, it's hard for us to know some of the background information that a trade association like NFIB would know. And it sounds to me, Will, like what you're saying is that you don't have to be, the Ford Motor Company. You don't have to be, the richest person in town to be able to get people's attention to how to make the ruling more fair. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. I mean, lawmakers and state agency bureaucrats need guidance. They don't work in these fields. They may not be familiar with exactly what it is in your field that you're trying to accomplish. And by and large, most of the times I find that people are very receptive, without regard to party or politics or whatever. They're very receptive to people who want to take action and want to be involved, and they appreciate it. So, you know more about your business than any lawmaker or any bureaucrat knows. So that's why it's important that you help guide them.
You were talking about the 5 top issues. Can you elaborate a little bit on the one that was of most interest?
The cost of health insurance, and frankly, that's not just Texas, but that's nationally, and it has been that way for 30 years. In us doing our problems and priority polls and surveys, it's just it never deviates, and it's just and for a small business owner, it's particularly onerous because they want to provide health insurance to their employees and to their families. But more and more, it's just gotten outrageously expensive, and they have to spend. I have one member who was telling me he spends the entire month of November planning for what health insurance product he's going to get for his employees beginning that January. He has to take an entire month to come up with his plan. So sometimes it's not just the cost of the product or the cost of the tax or the cost of the regulation. It can be the cost of complying or the complexity of it. But health insurance has been, well, obviously with Obamacare and now we have the repeal of the individual mandate. And now President Trump has come out saying he supports association health plans, which would mean people could join their local chamber or whatever group and band together to form a purchasing group. So there's more people. It spreads the liability and would potentially lower the cost. Although and this is something we supported in the past. I'm not sure where we are on it now, but there's just a lot of complexity and a lot of moving parts to it, and it's. I guess we were opposed to the passage of the original Healthcare Act, the Obama, what he builds Obamacare, and we even took it to the Supreme Court, and we lost on a 5-4 split decision with Justice Roberts, the Chief Justice, ruling against us. We had taken to the Supreme Court saying that the individual mandate is unconstitutional because for the first time in history, legislation has been enacted that mandates you buy a consumer product. And that was our side of the issue. And the court agreed with us, but they said, that may be true, but Congress does have the power to tax. And this is a large tax, therefore it is constitutional. So a little history lesson on healthcare from the point of view of small business. But getting back to it, on healthcare, my members want to provide it because they've hired these employees, they've trained them, and they do everything that they can to retain them because the cost of hiring is extremely expensive. And so you don't want to just hire someone, get them all trained up just so they go to work for someone else that will provide either a higher wage or these benefits like healthcare and whatnot. So it's very important that they be able to afford health insurance for their employees.
You bring up a really interesting point about healthcare because then there are some related areas that we're seeing as trends in that cities are creating ordinances that people who want to do business in their city have to follow. Paid time off. Now there's one about scheduling. Are you seeing a trend where cities or local communities are coming out with these regulations, for lack of a better term?
Sure. And, I obviously Texas is a very red state, and, these are things that they cannot get done at the state level. I mean, we oppose, predictive scheduling, as you mentioned. We oppose the paid sick leave issue. It may be good for some industries, but if you're in the restaurant industry, that's a devastating blow. So these groups, SEIU is a union. They're the main player behind this. They fund this group called the Workers Defense Project, and they have come up here in Austin. They know they can't get anything done at the state level, so what they're doing is targeting cities, municipalities. And Austin is a very, very blue, very liberal town. Well, they passed this in 17 days, this paid sick leave ordinance. And so just yesterday we filed suit, of course, with some other groups, other business associations and individual groups. And basically saying that it flies afoul of several issues, but first and foremost, the Texas Minimum Wage Act, because it would mean, there's a minimum wage and you can't, on a statewide level, you can't force businesses to pay more than minimum wage. Although minimum wage is a crock, no one actually makes minimum wage anymore. So this would say, hey, in a week, if you take off, an 8-hour shift, and I still have to pay you, then it potentially is more than the minimum wage. So anyway, the trial was yesterday. We're pretty sure the ruling will be against us. We're just hoping to get it to the appellate court, where we have a much better chance. Again, we elect our judges here, and these are in City of Austin State District judges, and so they're representing their constituency, which is decidedly left of center.
And those kinds of ordinances, I know from the paid time off, is also gone through in 35 other cities throughout the country. So are you seeing more cities, not just Austin, really kind of take the initiative when Congress or their state government doesn't take it?
Yes. As a matter of fact, they've already gathered enough petitions, signatures on a petition, yet to be verified, in San Antonio, Texas, and in Dallas, Texas. So, they'll have to verify the signatures. What they did, and this is really pretty clever, in San Antonio, they did it during their fiesta, which is hundreds of thousands of people flock to San Antonio for this riverboat festival and night in old San Antonio. And so they just set up booths all over that place, and so the people signing those petitions, probably not from San Antonio at all, but from places all over the state and all over the country. So I doubt that petition is going to be verified. But the city council has also already said that they want to take it up, and I know Harris County or Houston is going to be looking at the same thing as well. But Austin has also announced, now they have the paid sick leave, they're moving on to the predictive scheduling, which basically says you get fined if somehow you have to change the hours or the time that your employee has to work. It's pretty difficult. Businesses need flexibility, particularly, and I go back to the restaurant industry because I came from there. On a paid sick leave ordinance, do you want someone sick serving you food? Oh, of course not. But you have to give the business owner and the employee the flexibility to trade hours, because they do it all the time. And ability to be flexible and making sure that employee gets their time in and doesn't show up for work sick.
And this scheduling thing, again, did not originate here in Austin. There are these national activities that are happening at the city level. Now you mentioned the SIU. Is that a state or a federal organization that is initiating these in Denver and San Francisco and other places? They
are. It's a Service Employees International Union. I believe they're based out of Chicago or DC. They fund a lot of these ordinances around the country. They have all the money they can use, and they don't lose an issue for fear of wasting money. They spend a lot of money.
That seems like a new trend. I don't remember, I've been in business a long time. I don't remember seeing it before. But the union's got a kind of a blow this week from the Supreme Court. Do you want to talk about that, please?
Absolutely. We were involved in the case just yesterday on a 5-4 split decision. The Supreme Court ruled in Janus versus actually Janus versus the AFSCME, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Essentially, in some states, you can be compelled that if there is a union, you're compelled to pay union dues, regardless of if you want to or not. And the thought, I guess it was a case decided 41 years ago, where they ruled, well, even if you aren't part of the union, you're benefiting from the union in their activities, so you should pay. But the Janus he's a gentleman that worked. I'm trying to remember. I believe it was in Ohio. I can't remember exactly where it was. But he didn't want to be part of this teachers union, and so he sued and made it all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was finally decided yesterday, and we won. And we did file an amicus brief in the case, and we argued that the compulsory there it is, public employee union fees are unconstitutional, and they found in our favor.
And certainly unions have a place. They do a lot to protect workers. Do we have issues related to where the union agreements come into conflict with other kinds of ordinances from at the state and the federal level that you know of?
Well, that's real funny you should mention that, because when Austin did pass the paid sick leave ordinance, they exempted the city of Austin, they exempted themselves, and they also exempted all unions and union businesses. But I'll defend unions, because we have members like you're a contractor and you just get a big bid to do the electrical wiring in a new tower going in. Well, you probably don't have 40, 30, 25 electricians on site to go do that job. So what do? You go down to the union, United Electrical Contractors, and you say, you negotiate with them, say, I need 25 electricians. I need them to work from this time to this time, and let's talk about wages and benefits. And so, yes, unions do serve a very good role in many cases. It's sometimes when the politics of it, they begin to get special treatment over and above what, say, a small business owner would get. That's when it becomes problematic for us.
In Texas,
did I answer the question?
You did great. In Texas, we have sunset laws, but there aren't sunset laws official at the federal level. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So would you talk a little bit about the purpose of a sunset law and why small business owners might want to be looking at what's on the books?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, basically what that means is our state agencies have to justify their existence every so often, and that's a good thing. It's a healthy thing, and it gives us an opportunity. We have the Texas Sunset Commission, and we have lawmakers and citizens alike serving on that, and they'll go in and not just look at the justification for keeping an agency, but look at the manner in which they're conducting business, and look at the rules and regulations inside that agency, and are they still relevant today? I mean, the workplace and the rules and how business is done changes rapidly, and so you can have an old, big, stodgy bureaucracy it's almost immovable. Well, if they're coming in and having fresh eyes look at the business operations and how they conduct their business, it's a great thing, and I think it keeps government more agile and keeps it up to date.
One of the things that I know that some of my fellow NFIB members who were delegates to the White House Conference on Small Business complained about is that they had to try to balance compliance issues where there were conflicts between state and federal and local. What does a business owner do in those circumstances? What have you found that your members do, or that NFIB recommends when there are these really major conflicts? Larry Odette used to talk about the fact that in the days of file cabinets, he had a state file cabinet, and he had a local file cabinet, and he had a federal file cabinet. What do we do in those circumstances?
Well, I think just in my selfish opinion, you call your lobbyist, you call me, and I help you work through it with your state senator, or your state representative, or your congressman or U.S. senator. That's what we do. We serve as that conduit between, when we see, these rules or laws running afoul of each other. That's when we step in. That's our job, is to make sure that these rules and regulations and laws are not so complex that they can't be dealt with easily by a layman, but also that they're not in conflict. More and more, and there's my theory on government, and this is something that we've been talking about, particularly since this paid sick leave ordinance, is cities are created by the state, and therefore should not have the authority to overstep the state. They are creatures created by the state and home rule municipalities. And by the same token, and this is where you can start some arguments, that the states form the federal government, and the federal government should not be stepping foul of what the state is doing. It's a kind of the original 13 colonies set up the federal government. And more you see the feds acting, and obviously the state, the municipality, and particularly in Austin with this ordinance and these other ordinances. But the feds, have recognized in the past that there are state issues. The states are supposed to be the incubators, the ideas where new thought, new policy, and new laws are generated. And if it works here or there, maybe it'll work in your state. So there's supposed to be this breeding ground of ideas. But the federal government, recognized this. And for example, when they wanted to mandate that everybody have auto liability insurance that's driving, well, they couldn't just pass it. What they did was they said, okay, Texas, Virginia, if you do not, you're not going to get these federal highway dollars. So basically they bribed us. I'm not picking on, having liability insurance. That's probably a good thing, particularly if you get hit by somebody. But they did the same thing during the last administration when they wanted us to liberalize our unemployment insurance. And the administration actually told Texas, if you liberalize, basically you allow more people more time on unemployment for all eternity, then they'll give us $585 million for our unemployment fund. So basically, and at that time, it was 2009, we were blowing through money so fast in that fund that would have been eaten up in about 4 to 5 weeks. So it wasn't a very good bribe. It wasn't very handsome. And then we'd be paying out these extremely handsome unemployment checks until the rapture, forever. You can't go back on it. So those are the ways where the federal government has, encouraged states to do big things.
And we do have, examples. I know the ACA is loosely based on the Massachusetts plan, and Texas and Virginia are much bigger than Massachusetts, and it worked really well in Massachusetts. But sometimes state initiatives work better in certain places and not in others, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. But that's the whole concept of states being the incubator of ideas.
Mm-hmm. One of the incubator ideas that I know that we tried to get through with the White House conference when I was a delegate was to get, as some states have, is an impact statement as far as a new proposed rule or regulation. What's the status of that? We have it in Texas, but we don't really have an ombudsman or somebody other than the Office of Advocacy in the Small Business Administration. Are we anywhere with getting people to really look at legislation before they pass it?
Yeah, yes, it is continues to be talked about, and the Trump administration has. Hey, we just passed something here the last session. We're very proud of. We call it the 1 in, 3 out, which basically said, okay, if you pass a law that gives rulemaking authority and has to create a new rule, or an agency has to promulgate new rules, then you also have to, in the same time, remove another rule. So get rid of rules if you're putting new ones in, because government grows and grows and grows. And the Trump administration, I guess, heard what we did here in Texas, and I even heard President Trump speak on it, that if they call it the 1 in, 1 out. If you pass or have a new rule, then you got to get rid of one. So, that's being talked about. I don't know that it's in a legislative form right now or not, but we would certainly hope so.
And your point was well taken. I remember that the White House conference was during the Clinton years, and the president came to the White House conference, and he was up on stage with a cartload of rules and regulations related to grits, and he said, "How can anybody who makes grits deal with all of these?" And he promised a smaller government and get rid of a lot of the rules that don't make any sense. And so we had the reinventing government. So we've been at it since '95. So I guess we just keep plugging at it.
Yeah.
Will, you talked about healthcare. What about tort reform? Is that a big issue still for small business owners nationwide? And would you explain what that is?
Basically, it's torts are laws on the books that trying to think of a proper way to put it. Back in the day, it was a huge issue in Texas, and it was trial lawyers running amok, filing all kinds of lawsuits on businesses, and there's been some new activity on this, and I'll get to that in a minute. But essentially, what we did in Texas is, and with the election of the then Governor George W. Bush, he ran on 4 things. Can't remember all of it. The number 1 was tort reform. Doctors are being sued. I knew a surgeon who spent more hours in the courtroom than he did doing surgery. It's just the judicial system had just run amok, and people were just suing left and right. And even as recently as last year, the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, was created, and there was a lawyer here who had a gentleman in a wheelchair, and they filed suit, and they just filed an ADA lawsuit against every business up and down Lamar Boulevard. That's one of our major north and south thoroughfares here in Austin. And without regard to were they in compliance or not, they filed a lawsuit and basically went to each one and said, "We'll settle for $2,000, or we'll settle for $2,500. A friend of mine that owns a bar over there, yes, a lobbyist goes into a bar. That's a joke. A friend of mine that owns a bar over there said, "Yeah, I settled for $2,000." He said, because it would have cost me $10,000 just to hire an attorney to defend me. So a lot of times, and that's helping to rein that in is what the whole practice of tort reform is all about. But it's not as big an issue here in Texas as it is in other states right now, because we have been very successful in with our Civil Justice League and all the anti-lawsuit associations around the state. We've been very successful in controlling that industry.
And you make a really, really good point. Is you can, and these frivolous lawsuits, not all are, but that was a real problem. And the problem with a lawsuit is that you may win, but it may cost you a lot of time and money to win. Let's talk about taxes. Was taxes an issue in DC?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, that was the only issue we were talking about. And you talk about the optimism of small business. A lot of it is because this tax cut that we got, this, you know, it was not just for business, it was for individuals as well. But we did a survey, and we're very positive about the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and said 87% believe the new tax law will positively impact the economy. 87%. 75% believe the new tax law will positively impact their business, and 70% said it's going to help their personal situation. But what we were there to talk about were some of the things that they didn't do, and one was make the individual tax rates permanent. And so we're very interested in doing that. And so that was the main focus of our meeting, because you have to have certainty in planning. I'm not, as an individual or a business, I'm not operating, you know, on a shoestring, you know, month to month, year to year. I have a 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan, and I need to have some certainty in what the economy is going to look like, what the regulatory environment is going to look like. And, you know, if you don't think taxes or regulation, it's probably the most harmful regulatory issue there is. You know, many times the tax code picks winners and losers, which is wrong. But, you know, everybody should be, you know, nobody loves paying taxes, but everybody understands the importance of it, and the importance of having taxes to provide the infrastructure, the roads, educate our children. My wife is an educator. You know, we need, you know, these government services. It's just we need also reasonableness and a certainty and a less complex tax structure. So yeah, that's a huge issue for us. You know, and it's not just the federal government; it's the state government. We have a very onerous system of taxation in Texas. It's a small portion of our overall budget, but we have a gross receipts based business tax called the margins tax, and I have members that say, okay, I have a $5,000 tax liability, but it costs me $8,000, you know, in hiring a CPA and an attorney to figure out what I owe. And, you know, the tax form I have to file may be an inch thick. So the complexity of the tax in many cases can be more difficult than just actually remitting a check to the government.
And my group is going to be looking at compliance costs. So thank you for bringing that up. Also, while you were there, the Supreme Court weighed in again and made an interesting decision that we knew has been coming about taxes and online businesses. What was the feeling in DC about online businesses, smaller businesses paying those taxes?
Sure. Yeah. You know, that's you know, I mentioned that we survey our members, and we ballot them on issues, and every time we ballot them on this on online sales tax, our members are split 50-50. I mean, you know, the people that purchase stuff online, bring it in, but so it's not something that we've really dealt in. We haven't waded in those waters. But it is interesting and having come from the comptroller's office where I worked on tax policy for the comptroller, you know, you got to begin to think about the point of sale versus, you know, it's an issue that's going to take a lot of legislating and a lot of time to figure out how they're going to do it. But ultimately, and this is something people just don't realize because it's not commonly understood or known, but your sales tax is not just a sales tax, it's a sales and use tax. And there are, you know, if you bring something in from out of state, you're supposed to pay a use tax on it. And the comptroller's office, they have an audit and enforcement and CID, that's Criminal Investigation Division. Those are the guys, the tax collectors that carry guns. But they go to warehouses that are shipping things in from all over the country or all over the world, and they're auditing what's coming in, and they're collecting fees for the use tax. And a very interesting, while I was at the comptroller's office, there was a gentleman, a very wealthy politician from Texas. I won't mention his name, but he was in France and he bought basically millions of dollars worth of artwork and had it all brought back in this big container. and was sitting in there, and the comptroller's office got wind of it. And this was the political opponent of the comptroller, and they went after him, and they charged. He had to pay tens of thousands of dollars in use tax on that artwork that was brought in.
I'm really glad that you talked about it, because we always refer to it as sales tax, but sales and use is what all of us really need to think about. Do you see, or is NFIB seeing, that eventually there will be kind of a centralized place that we will pay those to if we're an online business, and then the entity will redistribute? Because one of the issues for my small business clients is, Texas or Austin has a rate, Round Rock has a rate, some places have no rate, like Delaware has no rate for sales tax. Do you all see those kinds of things being created at a larger level to make it easier for small business? Or maybe NFIB is going to do that.
It's and what you say is true. The state sales tax is 6.25%. Now, local municipalities and hospital districts and EMS districts, they can set up to 2 points higher than that. So it could be 8.25. And so you get into the point of collection of the tax, which is very complex. Okay, for example, if I'm an air conditioner repairman working in the city of Austin, and I get called out to some rural community that has no taxing authority at all, what rate am I to charge for that sales tax? Because if I don't collect the proper amount, I could be liable. If I undercollect, I'm liable for that extra 2%. So the point of sale is a sticky wicket that I don't think really we have, and particularly with this new Supreme Court ruling, I don't believe we really have our heads wrapped around it yet. It's going to be some probably a legislative fix at some point nationally and of course statewide.
Well, I certainly thank you for your time. We have 3 minutes left. I want to bring up your contact information. You can reach Will at will.newton@nfib.org. Will was kind enough to give me Nicole Riley. She is your Virginia State Director, and so hers is, there's a phone number, 804-377-3661. We're very partial to Will, but I'm sure Nicole is equally wonderful. And then there's a website for NFIB. You wanted to say something, Will? I wanted to ask you to give us your last comment.
Well, good luck, entrepreneurs. I admire y'all. What you do, and having a passion, growing a business. It's heartwarming. So keep it up. Good luck. It's just, we need entrepreneurs. We need people out there creating businesses, creating ideas, providing services, and some of the services y'all want to provide are just extremely heartwarming. I think in helping women and children and being in healthcare, I'd love a career in tech teacher. We need more of that.
Maybe some of these businesses in Texas, Will. So I want to encourage those of you who are not connected to me to follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook. I do a special column called Wisdom Wednesdays. I talked about this friend that I spoke about with Will about local ordinances becoming the rule of the land. So you might want to keep an eye on that. We do have some events coming up, and our next Boss Talks Online will be talking about digital PR. That's coming up July 5th if you happen to be around. But in the meantime, it is now 11:59. Thank you, students. Thank you, MBAs, for being with us. Thank you, Will, so much. And again, I will be putting this audio up for the Mary Baldwin people, and I will be adding you all, I hope it's okay, to my newsletter so that you'll know what else is going on. Thank you all so much. I see a nice note from Brianne. And Brianne, if I didn't say your name right, I apologize. Is it Brianne?
It's pronounced Brian.
Brian. Sorry, Brian.
Yes. No, you're fine.
Okay.
Jan,
So you will got
Jan, one
lots
more
of
idea.
thank yous from everybody. So
Dan, one more
Yeah.
idea, if I may. Guys, get involved, stay involved. Remember,
and vote.
if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're probably on the menu.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. So be sure you vote. Whatever way you vote, just be involved. He's absolutely right. Thank you again so much. Thank you for that last very good point. You all have a good week, and I'll see you online on Monday. My students, don't forget we're doing our actual business profiles Monday night through Blackboard. I always have to swallow about Blackboard because I'm so used to GoToMeeting, but thank you so much for being with us. And Will, again, thank you so much. Be safe on your 4th of July and enjoy this wonderful country that we live in. Bye-bye.